This founder runs an AI consultancy that helps businesses figure out how to actually use AI. But his LinkedIn profile made him sound like every other AI advisor out there. In this Clarity Jam, we dug into how to turn data production into his real messaging wedge, tighten his positioning, and make his profile feel credible instead of crowded. It's a good one if you're juggling too many offers and want to stand out without sounding like a buzzword factory. Let's dive in.
I'm Michael Thomas. I'm the co-founder of Tucana AI. We're a AI first development and advisory business.
I love it. Thanks so much for coming on to Clarity Jams. Definitely not the first AI business, whether it's AI startup or AI consulting I've had on. There's a lot of them. So tell me a little bit more about how you started your consultancy.
I've been in the software game since 2008. I started my first software business in September 2008, and if anyone remembers the economic crash of then, that was the month that it happened. So my business plan got thrown out the window as soon as I started, and so I'm still here to talk about it, which is great. I still have that business as well, and however many years later, what we've seen over the last, call it 20 years, in terms of software and software development has been profound, and it's led us to this point in society now. However, the adoption of AI has had such a huge effect on how quickly we can explore our ideas. And the barriers to creating something, whether it's a SaaS product, whether it's a business plan, or an agent, it's untold right now. And so what took us 4 years to build is taking us about a month. And you can't understate how powerful that is after you've gone through the 4 years like we did. And that was there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of mistakes, there's a lot of patience required. But what we can do now with automatic coding, vibe coding, whatever you want to call it, is just next level. And so that's why we are fully invested into this space. And it is definitely the future.
I love it. And tell me a little bit more about kind of who are your ideal customers or clients for your consultancy.
So for our consultancy, we have two main arms. There's a consultancy and advisory business, and we have a custom development business as well. With the inquiries that we've fielded in the last, call it 6 months, has been all about, how do I understand AI? How do I leverage it? I don't know where to start. It's what happens with the data, what happens with our company, our proprietary company data. There are so many different questions that people need answering, that we have the knowledge and skill set in. We've got it backed up with 20 years of traditional software development, but we're also using AI in our business every single day. And we understand these questions intimately because we have lots of proprietary IP ourselves that we just don't want to give out to LLMs, to then give it to them and they go off and do whatever they want to do with it. So a lot of the questions that we get that we field, we've answered ourselves. And so that's why the consultancy advisory business is such a strong avenue for us, because we're living and breathing what these companies are going through. We're working with the largest tech companies in the world, all the way down to their local boat shop. So there's not really any particular niche that we're filling, because a lot of the problems and challenges are the same that businesses face. Where do we start with it? What is the best tool? How do we get the efficiencies from it, either business expansion or create efficiencies in operation? And how do we manage our data? How do we keep our data protected while still leveraging the technology?
And who's kind of the key decision maker when they go in to hire your company? Is it, is it a buying committee? Is it, somebody, a specific job title? Who are you normally, talking to?
We're finding that there's been a delegate or an individual or a small group of individuals who are in charge of the AI policy within a business. And that could be anyone. Like, we've seen it in CFOs, we've seen it in mid-level managers. It really is whatever's been chosen within the business. And from what we see, there's no rhyme or reason in it. So you could say it's an IT department, but then some IT departments are quite, well, what we've seen are anti-AI, or they're negative AI. They come at it from a very technical approach. in terms of this is how an LLM works, and they try and teach the staff of the company how an LLM works, and we know how an LLM works, and it's not the way you want to be teaching people how AI can be adopted. It is so technically, for argument, boring that people just glaze over. They just go, they want to see results, they want to see the outcome. And so what we do find though is that the decision making eventually rises to the top. It's either director, managing director, C-suite, but we do have stakeholders at mid-level management who are proponents of what we're doing with them, and they'll say, right, this is what we're working on. This is how we can unlock the results, whether that's efficiency or business expansion. And then they table that just like they would any sort of other business plan within a business to the directors or the decision makers. So eventually get to board level, C-suite, managing director. That's who basically signs it off. But you do need buy-in from the company and the lower ranks, because they're the ones that are going to either use the technology or they'll be direct beneficiaries of it.
Totally. So basically it almost always starts with some sort of AI committee within the company, and that could change based off of what the company's kind of is. But ultimately you are selling to the CFO.
CFO, directors, the board of directors, but no one works in isolation with this.
Yeah.
You know, it's a collaborative effort that people need to work on, because AI can touch all areas of the business. I think traditionally what we've seen, even 2 years ago, the biggest brands in the world didn't have any strong, robust AI policies. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the team or the people who work for that company were using platforms like ChatGPT in their own time. And that was born out of a desire to control the company data. So a company would say, you're not allowed to use ChatGPT because we don't want the data out in the ether. But the staff were like, well, it's such an awesome tool that we're going to use it in our own time. And so there were these clandestine usage stats that companies were discovering, which, despite their attempt to control data within the business, it was still leaking out because staff were still using it on their own time. They were paying for ChatGPT, it's $20 a month, it's whatever. So then they were, right, we need to embrace this. And then we go, okay, let's put in some AI governance and policy around what tools to use. And then we can start controlling through perhaps even MCP servers to control and protect the data but still leverage AI for the company. So it has evolved, and companies are still playing catch up, because there is still a legitimate concern about company data and how it's used in amongst the LLMs, but they need to put in some controls. It's a crucial piece, and so that's where we come in. We know how to advise companies on that sort of stuff.
Got it. With that in mind, do you want to go ahead and pull up your LinkedIn and kind of dive in a little bit deeper? So before I kind of dive into your headline and your cover photo, I want to ask kind of the next question, which was, so what is kind of, I always talk in the line, a lot of these jams along the lines of a messaging wedge, or that, kind of that final thing that kind of gets somebody over the edge to want to sign up for your consulting, or, sign up for one of your products as well. Because I know you're also developing products similar to myself. What is kind of that last thing where someone kind of comes in, whether it's the AI committee or a CFO coming in, where it's like, I need to go work with your consultancy? Like, what is kind of that thing?
So we do outbound through LinkedIn. We do outbound messaging through LinkedIn. We also have a TikTok and a YouTube account as well. So we've got my LinkedIn page here, which is fine. It just shows who I am, what I've done, all of the posts. What we're doing as well is just we're taking a lot of the thoughts that we have in our daily meetings. So we get together on a daily stand up and keep everyone accountable within the business. And there's, because the space is moving so quickly, we post our thoughts on how the a lot on how the job market is going to change and how it's going to affect work. And we came across, or you came across one of my posts about how product managers are going to be and what skill sets is required in product managers. Now, running a software business for as long as I have, product managers generally need to come from a semi-technical background, but they also need to understand the application that the software has been applied to. So, and that industry and the dynamics of that industry. However, with the vibe coding, with Claude Code, for instance, being able to generate, call it 50% of the code that is needed, then that product manager, that technical product manager, is not necessarily needed to be focusing on a technical. It doesn't need to have technical skills. And so one of the products that we've built is a relationship mediator. And so it mediates relationships between married couples, partners, housemates, flatmates, families, business partners, board of directors, where people can download their thoughts and frustrations and issues in a controlled and private environment, and our AI will then determine the sentiment behind the message and then convey that to the other parties. Now, the product manager that we're looking for that particular product is not necessarily a technical person. It can be literally a psychologist, because a psychologist can look at the answers and how the AI is performing versus understanding how the AI is wired and engineered, because that part of the product has been either partly outsourced or fully outsourced. And so that's just one thing that we came at. What is the future product manager going to be? It's going to be an expert in the field of what the AI is being applied to. So we post these sort of ideas and debate topics, whether we're wrong or right. We don't say we're wrong or right or anything, but it's just these ideas that we think are quite pertinent to what's going on. And so, we put it on here. We'll do a video of it and put it on YouTube. We'll do a short on TikTok, but then we're expanding out our website presence at the moment to reflect all of the different types of work that we're doing.
Got it. And that's really helpful. But to kind of circle back to what I said before, which is, so you're doing all these marketing things to kind of get clients in the door. They've had a conversation. They're kind of bought in. What was the last thing they were thinking before they signed up for your consulting?
Before they signed up, well, we have a discovery call. So we have a strategy call with the prospect, and we ask a lot of questions. We have them fill in a questionnaire to then get them prompted thinking about how AI works and how it can affect their business. But there's no one clincher. There's never a clincher in terms of there's a silver bullet. That's what's going to get them in. Otherwise, everyone will be doing it. And so it really comes down to having a collaborative approach with the lead, with the prospect, and relieving them of a pain point. And the pain point can be a whole number of different things. It is about AI. That's what we do, but it can be about mindset. What is the potential of the technology? How can we protect the data? How can we reduce CapEx on business development and have the technology and AI agent go out and do the market research versus needing someone on the ground? And you say, well, yeah, we can do that. We can build an agent that's going to get you all of the intel you need to then have a strategic approach to the market that will then, that could be the clincher. There's never a silver bullet. That could be, they go, right, okay, good. These people are listening to us. They're relieving of our pain point. Let's sign up for a low-cost trial, run a pilot, and then we'll see where we go. It's a very normal thing where the pilot runs and then we roll into another use case, because the one thing that we do is that we provide inspiration on what the technology can do for the company. And once people see it once and they see, oh wow, that's how that works. What about this? What about this? What about? And then you start getting all the what abouts after about 2 or 3 months. And then you're inundated with these requests for running pilots, for exploring use cases that could work. Now, we know and we've seen out in the market, Johnson & Johnson did this not long ago. They ran 900 pilots and only 15% of them were actually successful. They were just like throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. So that's just a waste of time and it's a waste of money. Every use case is critiqued deeply on how it's going to affect the team, but also how it's going to affect the companies in general. And so it really depends on what it is, but we just try and understand what the pain point is for the business, and that collaborative approach generally is fairly successful for us.
Got it. And what are the, like, I know it can vary a lot based off of the business and the goals, but do you ever see any sort of overlap with certain types of broad, higher level pain points that are coming up over and over again?
Okay. Well, I mean, I've mentioned this a couple of times now. Data is generally always a point, an issue. You can talk about that in terms of, a small hair salon that has a list of loyal customers that, there might just be a name and a phone number, but you need to treat that as carefully as government, confidential data. And I know one of my family members is in the armed forces in Australia here, and he's in change management and for the Defence Force, and AI is a very hot topic for them. But you can imagine the information and the data that they have in the Defence Force it's the most confidential, precious data that you could ever find. And they've got the same issues. It's all about data. It's all about keeping it confidential. That's why GDPR was implemented back in 2018 in Europe. Data management and the usage of data was getting too loose, so they put in some protocols and guardrails to make sure that data was managed correctly and ethically. Now, a lot of different parts of the world outside of Europe are looking to adopt the principles of GDPR as well, which is great. But we understand those pain points. It's always a question: how is data? We don't want to let these LLMs have data, and there's a bunch of lawsuits for OpenAI and Claude and for having loose data practices. And so companies have spent their entire life building and protecting the data because it's proprietary to what they do, and they just don't want to just willy-nilly throw it out into the ether. So we have a number of different ways that companies can have their data protected, but also still leverage AI.
Got it. And with that in mind, do you want to kind of scroll up to the top of your LinkedIn profile?
Yep.
So the first thing I see here, kind of now that we've kind of have a little bit more of the pain points, who you serve, protecting data, all of that stuff. So the first thing I'm kind of seeing within your cover photo is self-replicating AI agents that scale businesses in weeks, not years, and then your company name. My question to you is, I know we were chatting a little bit offline about how you've worked with some very large tech companies, very recognizable logos. You probably have a lot of testimonials or case studies. Why is that not on your cover photo, which is like arguably your biggest real estate on LinkedIn?
Well, with some of the tech companies, we have NDAs. There's confidential work that we do with them. They're very protective of what they do and who they work for. So we have to keep things fairly bland and generic. Our outreach process is targeted to industry verticals at the moment that we know and are familiar with, because the conversations with those companies are quite simple and quite straightforward. On our LinkedIn is our LinkedIn. On our website that we're launching next week, we're rehashing it. It's tucana.group. www.tucana.group has a number of case studies that we've got on there, and there's a lot there that we can only really better disseminate through a website versus LinkedIn. LinkedIn has got so much going on. I mean, it's a very crowded site. We've got viewers, we've got public profiles, people you name it. There's just a bunch of stuff. LinkedIn's good. I mean, it's information rich, but in terms of conveying a message on what we do, it's not the best. But everyone's on it, so we adopt it. It's again one string to our bow.
Yeah, I would challenge that a little bit nicely in the sense
Okay.
where it's almost because LinkedIn is, yeah, obviously rented, but it's often oftentimes one of those front doors and one of the first places someone checks before your website, which you control. And obviously you can really own the narrative and have a lot more leeway there than you can on LinkedIn. But I wouldn't necessarily say defaulting to generic on LinkedIn might actually be hurting your positioning and conversions instead of helping it. So like I totally get you can't necessarily throw around logos and lots of case studies when you work in enterprise and there's 3 months of red tape. I can kind of go into some loopholes I've learned over the years working both in query jams but also working directly with clients. So I kind of how to get around that. There's a lot of ways you can get around it, but even if you don't want to do those loopholes, you can even just make your cover photo that much more specific by just going after the industries that you're in and maybe adding in a quote or something like that. So it looks like, hey, this is, a really specific company and why they should hire your company and not just any AI consulting agency.
Okay. Yep. Good advice. Great advice. Yep. And like we spoke offline, we're not precious about how things change moving forward. We want to do what's best for conveying the message. We're not precious about what the message is, but it's about conveying the message clearly and concisely.
So my next question is, you've been talking a lot about data, protecting data, and how important that is across the industries you're in, auto, tech, government, all of those industries where that's super, super important. That's also super, super specific and actually could be your messaging wedge, where if you're talking about, hey, we're the ones who are building AI agents and AI consulting systems specifically around protecting data, that's gets into specificity. And that also kind of signals, hey, we're not like every other AI consultancy out there. Have you ever thought about kind of leaning into that, not only on your website, but also on your LinkedIn?
Yes. It's a moving target, always a moving target, particularly what we're doing as a business, because we're fielding a lot of different types of inquiries. Some are quite specific, but some are very generic. Is where do we start? And you're like, okay, what do you do? What do you sell? Is it product? Is it service? Et cetera, et cetera. But like you said, the data side and protecting data is always a talking point. It's rarely the hottest topic, unless you're the defense force, in which case everything is centered around that. But it's always something that we talk about with our strategy calls.
Yeah. Well, that's your wedge then. Lead with that as your wedge, and then knowing that all those other questions are still going to come up anyway. They're not going to discredit your consultancy because you're leading with data. If anything, it's probably going to make them see you as even more of an expert in the space and make them want to work with you even more, even if they don't necessarily qualify on paper. The next thing I would kind of bring up is I kind of see on your headline, there's just a lot of text and a lot of buzzwords. Can you walk me through a little bit kind of what your thought process was with that headline?
It's to try and convey a message in the shortest amount of time. We've looked at other LinkedIn profiles that are doing similar work. And yes, there's buzzwords in there, but they are specific to what we do. How you distill the message down into layman terms is also, I think, a bit of an art as well with this. We run prompt masterclasses every month, and so that's why we put prompt engineering specialists, because we've had 4,500 people go through our classes, and everyone walks away just going, "Wow, that was amazing," because we're teaching them the basics on how to get more from their ChatGPT usage, for instance. Automotive and real estate AR is, you could say that's a bit buzzy, but we know when people within the automotive and real estate space need something, then we are the people to talk to, because we work in it, and I do property development myself, so I understand the core challenges of how that whole world works, and we're adding an AI piece to that, and it's hard to convey exactly what you do when the problems that you field, or the calls and the questions that you field are broad in their spectrum. And so it kind of forces you back to going, well, you can only use generic terminology anyway. The whole idea is to get the call to then say, I hear your pain and here are the solutions. And then you've got them clinched, and that's the winner.
Yeah. I mean, the whole goal is to tell them on the call. However, I'd almost wonder is being super, super generic and kind of having a headline and also a cover photo, which is your main real estate on LinkedIn. And the first thing people see and the biggest thing people see, should it be generic to the point where you look like every other AI consultancy?
True.
Or should you go
Yes.
very, very specific and have
Absolutely.
it be, you could still say real estate and kind of tech and automotive, which are kind of your specialties, put that in your banner image. You can still probably even have it in your header as well, but get a little bit more specific so that it makes it way more likely that they're going to pick you to even get on the call in the first place.
Yeah. Good call. Yeah. Well, open to.
And then the other thing I would definitely mention that's just like a very, very quick win is obviously LinkedIn. If you have premium, and I even think you might even be able to do this generally now, you can have a custom button. If your main goal is discovery calls, I would go ahead and make that be your custom button directly within there, where it says like right now resources. Change that to schedule a discovery call. That's an easy way to get more calls booked from anyone who's already on your profile.
Yeah, good call. Yep. I think that's something that we've discussed internally. I think we'll probably do that. Yeah.
Got it. So we kind of have covered a lot on here. You also kind of happened to leak out that you have other products that we didn't really get to hear. And you also mentioned that you have like thousands of people who've taken your prompt course. I would definitely figure out a way to lean into that, whether that's in the about section of your LinkedIn profile, or maybe even put that in your banner image to just kind of signal, hey, this is something that we've taught thousands of people how to do. That just only adds more creativity to you. Is there anything else before we wrap?
We are all into artificial intelligence and what it can do for society. We're very much of the view that when embraced, it's going to be an amplifier for the job force. If you're not going to embrace it, you'll get left behind. And it's almost a matter of life and death, I think, because it will disrupt. There is no question it's going to disrupt. However, if you embrace it and use it for what it's intended, then I think the opportunities are just ridiculous. It's untold. And so that's the approach and mindset we take with it. And that's what we teach in our prompt masterclasses is to use it with that intent. And I don't think you can go wrong. I really don't think you can go wrong. It's such an awesome technology. So yeah, that's how I think I'd wrap that up.
Totally. Yeah, there's so much opportunity, and it's like we're so very early on into this that it's really exciting to kind of be on the front lines. Thank you again for coming on the Clarity Chat.
Thank you.
Awesome.